Good evening, and thank you very much for taking the time to have a listen to this presentation on the Welcome to Year 10 evening. It's a shame we can't be together in person. However, I hope that some of the information that we get over to you this evening will be useful on this sort of big step up for our children into Year 10. Clearly, there are a few changes in terms of sort of our expectations, for example, thinking about encouraging students to be working a bit independently, but also the new opportunities that present themselves as the students move higher up the school, which I really hope they will embrace. So this evening, you are going to hear from a few key members of staff, including Mr. Owen, Ms. Fox, Mr. Mercer, Mr. Martin, and of course myself. So in terms of some of the changes that we have, I continue to be head of year, which I am delighted about because I feel I know the children fairly well by now, having known them since year 7. But I'm delighted to say that Mr. Hudson has been appointed as assistant head of year. Some of you will know him already from PE, but also he was a tutor of a year 9 group last year. In addition, we have Mrs. Cavilla, our Student Support Officer for Year 10, who comes with a huge amount of experience of dealing with students approaching their GCSE years. But in addition, we do have the rest of the Student Services team available as well, along with the tutors, of course, for your children. We all remain at your disposal to assist you and your child with anything that we can. So I will just now draw your attention to a few key dates. Perhaps the one of most interest to you at the moment will be the tutor review meetings, which take place on Wednesday the 29th. This will be your opportunity to have a conversation with your child's tutor about how you feel that they're settling in, and just to address any worries or concerns that you may have or may wish to pass on, that we can then follow up when we are in school. You will notice I've put the PR data drops dates for you. And then you will also see that on the 26th of January next year, you will have the parents' consultation evening when you will get to speak to the students' subject teachers. So please do, I would urge you to attend that, because it's so important for us to, or for you to get a perception of how the students have settled in with their GCSE courses. You'll see towards the end, we've got the exams at the beginning of May, which will be pretty much the first opportunity for the students to be sitting a sort of a mock GCSE, if you like, tailored to their year 10 curriculum. And then following that, we've got something called mock interviews, which is where we invite people from outside of school to come in to show the students how to conduct themselves in an interview. This will sort of link to their work experience, which is happening in June, but also it's a very useful experience for when they go out to college interviews or to interviews in the world of work. And we've usually found this a very, very successful opportunity for the students. So time will pass very quickly this year. Sorry to do this, but I think it's sometimes worth just being rather brutal about this. There are fewer than 600 days till the start of their GCSE exams. And if you look at what I have on the slide there, you will see that it's quite a tough request of the students. So an average of 25 exams, because of course many subjects have more than one paper. The students will find that sometimes they have 2, and maybe in a really difficult situation, 3 exams in a single day. And also, of course, you know, just learning to access GCSE material can be quite challenging. So one of the things at school that we have very much focused on the last few years is to do with the child's mindset. And I would really ask that you could encourage a growth mindset with your child. Just to try and explain briefly in this, if you are interested, we can of course provide you with some more information. But if you have a look at the two samples in front of you, the fixed mindset and the growth mindset, the fixed mindset is very much a child who's saying, well, I definitely can't do this, so I'm not going to do any more to try to improve myself. If I'm finding it difficult the first time, I'm going to stop. We very much encourage the growth mindset. So if a child has not done particularly well, let's say on a unit test, that is the perfect opportunity for finding out where they've gone wrong and learning to cope with it, learning from the feedback and keeping going, even though it is very, very difficult at times. And as I said, if you could encourage that at home, that rather than just accepting where they're at, to be looking at what they could be doing, we would be very grateful, because to be honest, the GCSEs are very much about a team effort here. And hand in hand with that is, of course, the significance of attendance. This graph from the Department for Education very clearly shows the correlation between the students who are in school for over 95% of the time and students whose attendance is not as good. I think the graph really speaks for itself. And if I just show you also, so from 2020, these were the top 5 students and the progress that they made in their Progress 8 subjects. You will see that, and all of them had above 95% attendance. All of them made above average or above expectations of progress in their GCSEs. So I cannot stress enough how important it is, please, that your child is coming into school. So student responsibilities have not changed, of course, since they were in year 7. I would just say that there is an expectation now that they're in their GCSE years of much more independent working. I would really encourage you to encourage your children to speak to their teachers, to have that communication. We definitely treat the children as young adults as they reach their GCSE years. One would hope that they are behaving accordingly, but it is so important to keep that communication open. If they are struggling, if they don't understand something, if they just want a little bit of extra help, please speak to the teachers. That is what we are there for. And to come back to what I said at the start, we have the student support team. If a student feels more comfortable speaking to Mr. Hudson, Mrs. Cavilla, myself, their tutor, then of course they should do that, and we will open those communication lines for them. We very much like celebrating success, and I really hope that this year we can actually manage to get some reward trips out, but at the very least we will be having rewards within the school, such as breakfasts and so on with key members of staff. I'm very impressed actually with how the students have been on the whole in terms of coming back in year 10. You know, resilience is one of those gifts, if you like, that we again encourage, and I know that some students have found it very challenging being with new teaching groups and new teachers, and on the whole people have dealt very, very well with it. And I would just so encourage them to continue with that, because that is something that they will need, not just at school and in GCSE, but in life beyond that. Finally, or nearly finally, I want to just mention the bullying. We have a zero tolerance of it. We need to know about it though. It is very difficult sometimes if a child comes and tells us about something that's happened maybe 3 months ago. We will always deal with it, no matter what the time lag is. But obviously, if we know sooner, we can deal with it much more swiftly. We've got a couple of ways of accessing us. One is on the Tell Us email, which you'll find a link to through the school website. But a new innovation this year is that we have put up some post boxes located around the school. So if a child wanted to just drop a note on a piece of paper and drop it into us, they are emptied every day and we will follow up on that. So please encourage your child to let us know. And of course, it goes without saying that the student support officers are there as well for anything like that. And this is just for your information to show you what tutor time looks like. The interesting ones, I think, for you are the Votes for Schools, which is a really interesting process where students get to debate a topic of the week and then get to vote on their opinion of it. And what is interesting is that we are participating with many other schools, and then the students get to find out what other young people are also thinking. And it's such a good process for them, for the debate, but also the feeling that they are participating in something. On Thursdays, they are working from the knowledge organisers. You will remember maybe that in the last 2 years, they have been given knowledge organisers for containing all their subjects. This year, the knowledge organisers are done subject by subject, but they do need to have them in their bags, ready to be used either on Thursday or, of course, in lessons. And finally, on Fridays, a really lovely innovation. This year, the tutors are going to be reading to the tutees the two books that we've got for Year 10, The Beekeeper of Aleppo or Never Let Me Go. So maybe speak to your child, see what they're reading, and perhaps you could join in and read, and then you can have a chat with them about it. Two really super topical books. Again, I just want to draw your attention to the uniform. I'm popping this in the PowerPoint just for your information. And just to be clear, you'll see the expectations there of the what is unacceptable. I would just like to add piercings. You should be aware that there should be no nose piercings. It should be a clear stud if they have one and can't remove it. Thank you very much for your support on this. And finally, thank you very much for taking your time. And I can't reiterate enough about contacting us if you have any concerns. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Miss Fox, the Head of English and the Assistant Principal responsible for literacy development. I'm just going to talk you through some key updates and reminders about Key Stage 4 English. So all students study AQA English Language and AQA English Literature. These are two separate GCSE qualifications, although lots of the skills do overlap, and students have 5 hours a week of English lessons. It's really important that both in lessons and outside of lessons, students are developing their familiarity and their knowledge of their GCSE literature texts, and also that they're thinking about them and developing their own ideas, because that is ultimately what the assessments at the end of the GCSE are assessing. And I'm going to talk in a minute about some ways that students can do that outside of lesson time. A really key part of what we do in English lessons is periodically having extended writing practice in timed conditions. This might be 20 minutes of a lesson just practicing one question from an exam paper, or the whole lesson working on a longer essay style question from a literature paper. And the purpose of this is to help students build up the stamina that they need for writing at length, and also just to support them in getting used to writing and putting their ideas on paper in timed conditions. So it might be that students receive some individual feedback and marks for that piece of work, which will tell them in advance, or it might be that we use it to inform our teaching and do some whole class feedback. So I just wanted to signpost you to some excellent resources which we find really helpful for students in their kind of revision and support with English, and just some additional support that's available. So starting with literature, Doddle is a really fantastic resource for us for literature. Teachers will often set Doddle quizzes as homeworks to check the understanding and to remind students of things that have been taught in lessons. It's really important when students are doing those quizzes that they aren't clicking over through quickly the additional information. There's lots of brilliant pop-up textbooks on the quiz with additional ideas, key quotations, and if students are fully engaging with it when they're doing the quizzes, it can be a fantastic educational resource. Another resource that we've found particularly useful for literature and that students really seem to have taken to is GCSE Pod. The short videos on key themes, key characters and plot points and just key kind of information about the GCSE text that they study are really helpful for students just to do some quick revision on any particular aspects that they're less certain about. And again, if they can be doing that interactively, so perhaps writing down 3 key ideas on a post-it note or have their copy of the text to annotate as they're watching, that can make the revision even more effective. The best revision resource is the actual book itself. So if we're revising Macbeth or Romeo and Juliet, the copy of Macbeth or Romeo and Juliet that they have with their notes from class and the actual words themselves is really the most important form of revision. So that might look like rereading an act or a scene or rereading a section of a novel, perhaps part that they're less familiar with. So that's really important. So when students are revising for English literature, we really want to see that they have their copy of the text with them. And then another additional way to support students' understanding and familiarity with the text can be to watch adaptations. So for most of the text that we study, there is a film or TV adaptation for that, which might be something that you could do together with your child is to watch an adaptation, and your child's English teacher might be able to point you in the direction of some specific adaptations of the text that would be good to watch. Moving on to English language. Miss Gray, who I will mention again at the end of the presentation, has developed an excellent resource in the Key Stage 4 recommended reading list. These are student recommendations, so Key Stage 4 students have recommended books that they really enjoyed reading that they think that their peers will also enjoy. Any wider reading that students do and reading for pleasure will massively support their English language skills. Another thing that students can do to revise for English language is creative writing practice using any images or paintings, photos as a stimulus for creative writing. And in general, reading a range of fiction and non-fiction texts is a really important way of students being prepared for their GCSE exams. So that might be reading magazine and newspaper articles, perhaps a magazine on something that they're interested in, a sport or a hobby or an interest. Likewise with blogs, reading blog posts on topics that they're interested in. And biographies and memoirs as well. So we find that students do tend to be, on the whole, slightly less familiar with non-fiction text formats. So there's just 3 examples of things that you could encourage your child to read, which would develop their English language understanding. And then finally, I just wanted to introduce you to Miss Gray, who is our Key Stage 4 English coordinator. Her email address is there on the slide, and you can email her with any English questions or queries about either of the GCSEs. Thank you for your time this evening.
My name is Julian Merson. I'm Assistant Principal in charge of Assessment and Moderation. Firstly, I'd like to talk to you about homework arrangements for students in Year 10. As in previous years, we use Doddle to record all homework tasks, and parents can continue to log into Doddle in order to monitor the homework being given. Students should expect weekly homework in each of their subjects. Now that they are in Key Stage 4, they should expect to spend more time on their homework than last year. Tasks in optional subjects should take up to an hour. Tasks in core subjects, English, Maths and Science, may sometimes stretch beyond this. The key thing is that homework is a really important means for reinforcing the learning that takes place in lessons. Any specific queries about homework tasks should be raised with the subject teacher. During Key Stage 4, students will have 3 major sets of mock exams. The first of these take place in May of Year 10. The other 2 will take place at key points during Year 11. We think of these as really important milestones in preparing students for the real challenge of exams in the summer of 2023. Parents can expect to receive 3 progress reports during Year 10, 1 for each term. Parental consultations take place following the second progress report in January. This is a really useful time to talk with each subject teacher about progress during the earlier part of GCSE courses. I hope this information is useful. Please do not hesitate to contact me if you have any questions about assessment processes during the next 2 years.
Hello, my name is Mr. Martin. I'm the Head of Science here at Longsands. My email address is on the screen. Please feel free to get in touch if there's anything I can help you with throughout the year. I wanted to start by talking about the GCSE qualifications and options at Longsands. For GCSEs, the exam board we use is AQA, and in terms of routes for GCSEs, there is what historically been known as double or triple science. Triple science with the new GCSE is actually referred to as separate sciences because you will get a separate GCSE for each subject, so 1 for biology, 1 for chemistry and 1 for physics. Double science equates to 2 GCSEs. You do study all 3 sciences, but there's some bits of content that you wouldn't study in double science that you would in triple science. Within double science or combined science, there's a route of synergy and trilogy. We follow the trilogy specification, which is by far the most popular route across the country, and it suits our timetable and our subject expertise at the science department at Longsands very well. I just want to spend a little bit of time here just making sure there's no I'm making it very clear that the perception that potentially is out there that double science or combined science is a lesser route is not the case. There is the obvious difference that triple science you get an extra GCSE as opposed to double science, which is only worth 2. However, in terms of academic rigor and challenge and the need to have a strong understanding of science, that goes across combined and triple science. So if there are any perceptions that double science or combined science is lesser, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time just to reassure parents and students that it is a very valuable qualification doing combined science. And in terms of often students think they need to do triple science in order to do A-level. That is not the case, and actually in some instances it might be an advantage to do combined science because it would be potentially easier to get the grade needed to do A-level science versus triple science, because you'll have, and this is where Longsands is a little bit unique, or certainly in the minority. Your double science, if you're doing double or combined science, just like triple science, you will have a specialist teacher for each subject. So you will have a biology teacher, a chemistry teacher and a physics teacher, whether you're doing double or triple. And that is not normally the case in the vast majority of schools around the country. And you'll also be given the exact same amount of lesson time across the year 10 and year 11. So you'll have the same number of lessons. If you do double, you'll have a little bit less content to learn, and a little bit less to revise, obviously, as well. So they're the key differences. But just to reassure, combined science is definitely a very valuable and rigorous qualification in GCSE. So in terms of fulfilling our motivation of getting the absolutely best outcomes for our students, our lessons and the homework that students are expected to do will obviously be a key part of that. But another massive part of that is that revision that they do themselves independently on top. And that should be happening on a continuous basis, not just cramming before exams. It should be continuous. And of course, in the lead up to crunch times in the year, it might peak and then level back off to a normal sort of level and then peak again. But it should definitely be continuous all the way throughout the year. I'm not going to spend time talking about all of these resources, but they're all there and they're all recommended. And if you've got questions about them, please speak to your teacher or email me. I'll be happy to give you some more information. Our recommended revision guide, we'll put a letter, and that will be on parent pay for you to buy at half price, and it comes definitely recommended. A plea for me as a physics teacher for all students to make sure that they learn their physics equations. The difference between knowing these and not knowing these can be as much as 2 or 3 grades of difference just based on this alone, because it comes up a lot, especially if you're doing a higher tier combined or higher tier separate. If you know these equations, you can pick up big chunks of marks, and really your grades will reflect that. The flip side is if you don't know it, you're probably going to be down 2 grades on where you really should be by learning these equations. Use the 23 equations app to test yourself on remembering them and using these equations. Kerboodle is a massively useful resource. It's got lots and lots and lots, hundreds if not thousands of different resources. But crucially, it's got a digital copy of the textbook that we use in school. So it's really important. Make sure you know how to log in. Make sure you know how to navigate the website. If you're unsure, please ask your teacher, please ask me, and make sure you're getting the most out of that really useful resource. And finally, just a quick recap for setting you off on the right start to this year. You should be continuously revising, and it will intensify at certain points, but you should have a base level where you're doing a continuous amount of revision each day. You should buy and crucially use the revision guides. Not much good if you don't use them. There is free resources that are available online, including resources that we as a school have paid for, such as Kerboodle and GCSE Physics Online. Make sure you learn your physics equations, and when you're revising, make sure you are being an active learner. You're not sitting in your room copying things out from the textbook or just reading. Your mind will not be focused on the task. Practice questions, get them wrong. If you don't know them, that's fine, get them wrong. Check your answers, see if you can see where you're going wrong, and then get help if you can't. That is a key thing. So practicing questions, checking your answers. If you get them wrong, that's actually fine. That's a good thing, as long as you're then proactive and getting help with those, and your teachers will only be too happy to help. If there's anything else I can do, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Margaret Carpenter, the Examinations Manager. Your students will have met me in year 7 and possibly in years 8 and 9, but obviously the last 2 years we have had fewer occasions to take examinations. The students in year 10 are just embarking on 2-year courses, which will either lead in the end to a GCSE or to a BTEC or other vocational awards, such as the Diploma in Construction with Welsh Joint Education. Some of the courses will end with the final exams, such as maths, but most courses will have some kind of coursework involved, and this will be taken over the duration of the 2 years. For BTECs and vocational exams such as BTEC Sport and BTEC Construction and Health and Social Care, there will be exams, external exams in Year 10 also, and these will count towards the final grade. So all the exams taken during these 2 years should be looked upon as contributing to the final result. The mock exams, which will be held in the summer, would give us a good indication of how well the students have taken in the work, where they need help, and just generally to get the experience of working in the exam hall. Most students manage the exams fairly well, but being in a big sports hall can be rather daunting occasionally for some students. Because of that, we have an area set aside at the back of the main sports hall where we accommodate students with additional needs, such as extra time, or because of medical reasons, or because there are other reasons for which they feel they cannot sit in the main hall. But generally speaking, the more practice students have with exams, the less anxiety they will feel.
For mock exams and external exams, every child will be given their own personalised timetable, and this will include where they are taking the exam, where they are going to sit, and which exam it is, the time, etc. This will also show extra time where it has been allowed for certain students. Every student needs to come prepared with the correct equipment, because this should make them feel more confident and help them to do their best in the exam. This includes having sufficient pens, because they do run out, so they break. The pens need to be black pens, because the external exams will be scanned and marked online, and other colours of pen quite often do not show up as well as the black. Pencils, calculators, maths equipment, all of which are very important, not just for maths, because subjects such as business studies, geography, construction, and all of the sciences require calculators, for example. Every child should have their own calculator, which they will of course be using in lessons, but this is particularly important for maths, where scientific calculators are needed, and these are not provided by us. So the student must bring their own calculator for the exams which require them. We do have a few in reserve in emergencies, if a battery goes or that sort of thing, but generally speaking, we will expect all students to have their own. There are also rules regarding how this equipment is carried, and the exam board stipulation is that all of the equipment must be in a see-through bag. This could be a simple sandwich bag, doesn't have to be an elaborate pencil case, but all of the items must be visible to the invigilators. Additionally, we know that students like to bring in a drink of water, and these bottles of water are usually kept down the side of the table because we don't want any accidental spillages, but it is important that the bottles have no labels on. This might seem strange, but that is an exam board instruction. If a student has particular needs that will affect their performance in exams, then it is important that the exams manager and the SENCO, Mrs. Martin Morales, are aware of this as early as possible in the course. Quite often, or in most cases in fact, the subject teachers will have already alerted us if there are particular needs for writing, spelling, or general competence in a subject. But sometimes the parent is in a better position to know of their child's needs regarding exams. So it is important that we keep this communication open between us. We do need to apply to the exam board for certain arrangements such as scribes, extra time, readers, some of which will require us to conduct testing to make sure the student is entitled to that arrangement. As for the exam hall itself, watches are not permitted. This is a national ruling, it is not a Longsands ruling, because it is very difficult to determine whether a watch is a smartwatch or an ordinary watch. We do have several quite large clocks on the walls in each of the exam rooms, and particularly in the sports hall there are clocks at the front and sides of the room. No electronic devices at all are allowed in the exams room, and of course mobile phones are not allowed in school in any case, but if we find a student with a mobile phone in their pocket, then this is going to lead to disqualification from that student's exams.
Hello, my name's Kate Martindale. I'm the Careers and PD lead, and I'm just going to talk you through the activities that are planned this year for students in Year 10 in order to support their career development. The focus in Year 10 is very much on preparing students for the world of work and talking to them about employability and the things that employers want. So we're going to work our way through a number of activities. Some of these will be taking place during PD sessions, others will be extracurricular activities, and one of them will involve a week out of school. So we're going to start by looking at CVs and interviews. So students will be using Unifrog to create draft CVs, and they'll be doing this in their PD lessons. Now Unifrog is a careers platform which I'm going to be writing home very soon, just giving you all the information. Students have already received a login email from Unifrog, so if you could check with your son or daughter that they've received that in their school email and get them to set up a password, that would be really helpful. You'll see from Unifrog there's a host of information. It's an excellent careers platform. It enables students to research options, post 16 and post 18 options, but also it enables them to look at the labour market, to look at labour market information, which means jobs and salaries. They can watch videos and get ideas about different types of careers. So that's a really useful platform that we're going to be using throughout the year. So the work that we do at the beginning of the year will lead up to the students having a mock interview. So these will be taking place at the start of December. More information will follow, but we feel that this has has the potential to be a really successful intervention for students, and they get a lot out of it. We will invite employers into the academy. It won't be teachers doing these interviews, so it does give the students a real sense of how to prepare for the process, and they'll get some feedback from the employer so that they can make improvements for the real thing. And then all of this will lead towards the work experience week. Now much more information about this will come out nearer the time, but the week placement is set to take place in July, and as I said, students will spend a week in work. So there'll be lots more information about how you can support that process. But that hopefully helps to give you a flavour of what's in store for students. And as I said at the start, the focus is very much about what our employers are looking for and how we can prepare our students for the world of work so that they can make a successful transition into the world of work, whether that be at 16, 18 or older. Thank you very much.